In this video, I'm going to talk about why it's worth over-preparing your best story going into a job interview. The first reason would be because the likelihood you're going to get asked about your best story is quite high. Okay, because let's admit it, every candidate would want to pitch. You would like to sell yourself on your strength in this job interview, so over-preparing it would also play to your advantage from this lens of statistically speaking. The second reason would be that it's a relatively enjoyable process to prepare your best story. This is when compared to prepare, a motivational speech or your elevator speech or preparing a failure story for that reason. Now, what do I mean by over-preparing your best story? Well, it could simply mean preparing it in a star format for a mid-level role, or the newer formats, for the age of AI, so to speak, where expectations have slightly evolved even for the star format. It could mean, for some candidates, this best story could be an older story, in which case it would make a ton of sense for you to brain dump your best story over 2 pages with everything you can remember, so you can pitch it as good as possible during a job interview. While for other candidates, it could be as simple as role-playing it. Some candidates, once they role-play these stories, they would get a feeling as to how they can sell themselves during these job interviews. Now, what would you win from over-preparing your best story before anything else going into a job interview? First and foremost, you will understand how you interview, your interviewing style. Okay, for example, some candidates would feel like, hey, the best way for me to deliver my best story would be as a long, convincing first answer. So this you would likely apply throughout your other stories you'd want to communicate during job interviews to the extent that makes sense. For other candidates, for example, for salespeople, they would want to revise their best story to intentionally omit some key details in a bid to invite their conversation. For example, you would forget to talk about some results, some interesting metric at the end of your answer, exactly in a bid to invite for conversation. Of course, these are people who can interview well already. While for other candidates, it could be as simple as to find the right star format, maybe a bit of learnings, maybe a bit to dramatize the situation. And this would be the interviewing style, and you would build a candidate brand, so to speak. And this would give you a lot more confidence for the purpose of a job interview. You will know, hey, this is how I interview, this is how I perform to the best as I can. The second reason why over-preparing your best story might make a ton of sense is because some candidates, when you over-prepare one story, you realize what your weakness is. For example, if you revise your best story, you write it over 2 pages, you find it went well, you structure in the star format, you find it was excellent, but then you role-play it and you find out, hey, oh my God, like I'm unintelligible, this is a mess. Then it probably means that your investment of time going forward after you over-prepare your best story would be in role-play when compared to other activities, which brings me to my third major benefit, and actually the core reason why you'd want to over-prepare your best story first, is because to understand a little bit of theory of what's a behavioral interview, what it takes to pass behavioral interview, it boils down to 2 things, your story bank and role-play. Most candidates would prepare all their stories, would probably revise them a number of times, and then they would role-play them. The problem with this approach is that it takes a ton of time for you to prepare all the stories, to revise them, and only then to role-play them, which role-play could be half of the process, the other half for which you'll never get enough time. Whereas if you over-prepare your best story, you have one time, you do one time this process overall with the role-play, with the revisions included, you will understand where your weakness is and where your strength as well. So for example, if you benefit from role-play, then it means moving forward, instead of brainstorming for other stories, and instead of revising and over-polishing them on paper, your best investment might be in role-play those stories immediately. Some candidates might not get enough value from the story building process as much as they get from the role-play. So by streamlining this process, by building a repeatable process for your best story to arrive to an answer that you may use in a job interview, you will get a solid understanding of what it takes to tune up your interviewing skills and what it takes to go in to go all in or to go fully prepared and confident in these job interviews. So I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.